Good morning. Can everybody hear me and see me all right? If someone can just drop a thumbs up into the chat just to let me know that we're good to go from a tech perspective, and we'll get started. Wonderful. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the first in our new Masterclass series where we are looking at capability and performance management. I hope you're all not too roasting this morning, and that we're sort of trying to enjoy a bit of the British summer weather and yeah, like I say, not getting too uncomfortable in the offices. I've had to choose this morning between having the windows open so I can get a breeze, but also it's this time of morning that my chickens lay, so that we get some peace and quiet because they're all sort of encourage each other while they're laying, and it gets a bit noisy. I've shut the windows this morning, so excuse me if I start to look a little bit shiny. So we've completed, I think it's 2 Masterclass series so far. So we've done Employment Rights Act, we've done our terminations and dismissals Masterclass, and now we're moving into performance management. So today we're talking about handling capability, early conversations, and how we do so in a clear and confident manner. So let's have a look at what we're going to cover today. So in the next 30 minutes, we're going to look at some practical tips and tricks that you can use immediately. So spotting signs nice and early, so recognizing and naming a capability issue or a concern before it becomes something that's a crisis or something that becomes too disruptive, and understanding why early action is so important when it comes to looking at capability. How we run these conversations. So this is the bit that people tend to get nervous about, is sitting down and having these difficult conversations with people. So simple, repeatable structures that we can use. So clear, curious, and constructive. We're going to come back to this. And how to keep the discussions nice and calm and productive. And how we can protect everybody. So looking after your relationship, team morale, and yourself legally, because as we know, we've seen lots and lots of change in the employment law landscape. It's getting higher and higher risk when we are managing individuals, and particularly when we are having these difficult conversations. So just to get started, drop it into the chat for me. On a scale of 1 to 5, how confident do you feel if you had to start a performance conversation after this webcast? So if you were going to leave this session and go and start performance management with somebody and have a conversation, scale of 1 to 5, 1, no confidence at all, 5, super confident, where would you say that you currently sit? So just drop that into the chat so we can have a look. So 2, 3, 4, 3, 4. 3, yep, 3.5. Okay, so we're all kind of middle of the road, which, let's face it, with something like performance isn't unusual. This isn't something where we're necessarily saying that somebody has done something wrong from a conduct perspective. And actually you may have somebody who thinks that they are either doing well or is actually trying really, really hard, isn't making any improvement. And these difficult conversations can be something where people actually get a little bit upset. Or it could be, like I say, where somebody has got their head in the sand a little bit, believes they're doing absolutely fine and isn't going to take this very well, and it ends up being a bit more of a conversation with quite a bit of friction. So why this matters and what's the cost of avoiding it? So one of the things that I always hate as a lawyer is when people come to me and it's very, very late in a situation. So rather than right at the beginning sort of thing, oh, we think there's going to be some issues with this person, we think there's some performance stuff going on, we're not looking at dismissing this person, but actually we've got a bit of a problem here that we want to try and address. That's the point you should be talking to somebody like me or HR professional. When people tend to come knocking on my door, it's normally right before ACAS has been opened and we're right bang smack in the middle of something that has sort of spiraled out of control. So we've had performance management conversations, they've not gone very well, a grievance has been fired in, and now we're looking at, has the relationship broken down and what can we do? And this is all a total mess. So it's nice and early that we want to be making sure that we are, if we're not confident with this stuff, that we're talking to either a professional or somebody who knows what they are doing. So the instinct sometimes is to wait and hope things improve, or if we're the kind of personality that doesn't like to have difficult conversations or likes to avoid confrontation, then there is that instinct to sort of sit on something, and that almost always makes something worse. If we sit on a problem, it's not going to get smaller. If anything, it's going to get more toxic and it's going to get more and more difficult to handle. So the issue grows, a small performance gap can quietly compound into something more serious. And if you've spotted it, or a couple of other people have spotted performance issues, if you sit on it and leave it and let it become toxic, you can guarantee that other people in the team and the wider workforce are going to start to notice. And that can cause resentment between relationships. So the team notices and other team members see what's happening and wonder why this person isn't being dealt with, particularly if they are having to pick up the slack when someone isn't able to pull their weight. The employee then can be blindsided. So without honest early feedback, the person who has been underperforming, because they haven't had any conversations or no one's brought this to their attention, that when formal action arrives, they actually feel really, really shocked, and they're not kind of clear on well, why this has been an issue for a while. Why have you sort of just left me to carry on as if nothing's wrong? And it can end up being embarrassing for that individual, and certainly from sort of a dignity perspective, to know that this has been an issue and that just someone hasn't addressed it with them, and perhaps people have been talking about it, that can cause a relationship issue with the employee as well. And by avoiding those small check-ins and the informal chats, we can end up very, very quickly then in a formal process if we sit on something and leave it. So a 10-minute informal chat early on can prevent weeks of formal capability proceedings, stress, and legal risk later. And when I'm doing coaching on things like difficult conversations and when I'm working with management teams around this sort of thing, if we have a culture where employees are used to someone checking in with them regularly, having performance conversations, if we've had a week when things haven't gone great, that we can sit down and go, right, this was an issue this week, this is how I think we're going to do better next week, that it doesn't need to be contentious, it doesn't need to be constantly butting heads. If this starts to form part of our culture, it becomes much, much easier to have conversations around constructive criticism, and it doesn't need to be this overwhelmingly emotional event. And it's much, much easier then to coach high performing teams if we're more used to having these conversations and more resilient to them. So we've got a poll on this on the screen now. So what's the biggest challenge when it comes to performance conversations? So firstly, worried about damaging the relationship. Secondly, I keep hoping the issue will resolve itself. I'm not confident I'm handling it correctly, or I don't know how to deal with a defensive reaction. So have a click, let us know what it is when it comes to performance conversations, what the biggest challenge is for you. So we're seeing most saying, I don't know how to deal with a defensive reaction. I'm not confident handling correctly. Okay, so still, yeah, most of the weight I would say is coming down into the I don't know how to deal with a defensive reaction. So hopefully some of the tips that we'll give you today are going to help with that. So the first tripping point, capability versus conduct, we need to make sure that we are naming the correct process and going down the correct path. And this is something that I've said on the other masterclasses, particularly when we did the conduct masterclass and we did the capability masterclass, is that these are the two processes that more often than not employers get wrong. Not because we run the processes incorrectly, but we're calling the wrong type of behavior the wrong thing. And what a tribunal expects is that we are selecting the real reason, if we're getting to dismissal, the real reason for dismissal. So if it's something that is somebody's conduct, we should be going down disciplinary proceedings. If it's something that's capability, we should be going down a performance management and a capability route. And where we sometimes see the lines blurred is where we've got someone where there are attitude issues, or perhaps they're not engaging with their line manager and there's timekeeping issues, or perhaps that we're accusing somebody of gross negligence, so that we know that they full well have the ability to do something and actually they've done something that almost seems like they are trying to sabotage. So when we get that crossover, I would say gross negligence, timekeeping, attitude is something that often should sit in conduct. That's where somebody won't do something that they are expected to do. So someone who is expected to be professional with their line manager and they're not doing it, expected to turn up to work on time, but they're not doing it, is perfectly capable of undertaking basic tasks, but are not doing it, and they're either sabotaging or they're grossly negligent. So where it's something that is a behavior choice, a rule breaking or deliberate action, then that is conduct. So the employee is capable of complying, but they're choosing not to. That's a disciplinary route. That's a different process entirely. The capability, this is where somebody potentially can't do something. So they might have a skills gap, their performance might be falling short. It might be as a result of ill health. So either they're not attending as much as they should be doing. That lack of attendance is causing skill fade, or actually they're just not able to come in and do the work at all. So the employee potentially wants to do well, but they're struggling. So this calls for support, training, and time to improve. It's not punishment. And sometimes what we do see is capability processes where we are talking about performance management, or people aren't hitting targets and they are struggling, and they are taken through a disciplinary process, but then told that they're receiving sanctions based on performance management and capability. And it all gets extremely muddled. We should not have just one process for dealing with these aspects, and this includes missing targets. We should have a capability process and we should have a conduct process, because it's one of my pet hates when I see people being taken through something that's labeled a disciplinary route to deal with capability. And even if the outcome references performance improvement, performance warnings, or capability warnings, it's still being labeled as a disciplinary process because it's got that formal invitation, meeting, and warning outcome. I hate it. Please separate them. We've got capability and we've got a disciplinary process. So as I've said, there's a legal red flag. Getting the category right at the outset can shape your entire approach. So most early performance concerns are capability. So this should be warm, supportive, and informal conversation. So very, very different to a conversation where we're talking about disciplinary stuff, even when that disciplinary stuff is also quite early doors. So spotting those early warning signs. The skill is, as I've said, not waiting for something to become a crisis. We need to notice the pattern before it actually becomes one. So these are the signals that are worth paying attention to. So where deadlines are creeping, so work that used to arrive on time is now consistently late, with increasing frequency of last-minute requests for extensions. I would say actually slightly before that, if you've got someone who used to do things on time, used to deliver things well in time, and then all of a sudden things are in at the last minute. So even if they're technically hitting that deadline, but things are coming in right at the last minute, that could suggest that actually we've got a bit of a time management issue, or that people have forgotten they've got a deadline and things are being rushed. And again, what that's often coupled with is that quality slipping. So something's technically been delivered on time, but the quality is not quite where we need it to be. We're seeing repeated errors, attention to details not quite there, reworks needed, or things that no longer meet the standard that we've expected to rely on. So I often see the deadline creeping and the quality slipping sometimes come hand in hand, or where a deadline has been met that we're not seeing that quality, that something is being sacrificed. Avoidance behaviors, so sidestepping certain tasks, so things that people find a bit difficult or a bit technical. So either not volunteering to do it, or trying to pass them on to other people, or avoiding the work altogether so it stays in the bottom of the in tray. Calling in sick on specific days, or trying to book annual leave to avoid certain deadlines or certain tasks, and becoming quieter and less engaged in team settings. So people who aren't able to engage in conversation where you're having discussion or debate, if you are in a team meeting where we are expecting people to contribute, and people who are staying very, very quiet. And others quietly covering. So particularly where you've got strong relationships between staff, you may have colleagues who are picking up the slack without being asked to, or they're trying to help their colleagues out. So it's a telltale sign that a gap has already been noticed by a team, but people are trying to help somebody who perhaps is personally quite popular. So mindset shift, we've got to try and get away from this attitude of performance, or immediately thinking, well, how can we dismiss this person? Or, I know this is going to become a bigger problem, so I need to get this person out. So we need to try and shift away from that to try and thinking about how can we support this person? How can we improve them? Because if you've recruited them, at some point, you probably thought this person was the right person for the role. There was something that you have seen in this person. And if we're not seeing the output that we expect, the starting point should always be, well, what could we be doing to make sure that we're getting the best out of this person? Is it the right working environment? What's that line management relationship like? How are we briefing them on work? Are we debriefing regularly? So are we seeing that if tasks are being done, that we're having those discussions about how things have gone afterwards? Is their training up to date? What's their relationship like with colleagues? Is this someone who's a bit isolated, or actually isn't getting the benefit of perhaps shared mindset or other resources within the business? So we start with ourselves first. Are we the problem before we then go and have these conversations? And then the reframe into something a bit more positive. So this matters because when you approach something with the mindset of I want to help you, it's going to shift how you carry yourself, how you speak, so your tone and how the other person feels. So if we start off defensive, if we start off with an accusatory tone, or if we're starting off with veiled threats, that's going to come across in the way that we speak. We're going to be very tense. We're going to immediately be thinking this is a difficult conversation. Whereas if we're going into something with the intention of, I want to support you, I'm invested in your future, this is something that I want to help you with and something that we're going to do together, that's going to be a much more supportive conversation, but it's also going to be an easier conversation and puts that person at ease, and they're more likely to open up and be honest about any challenges that they are facing. So what a fair process looks like. Well, employment law and the ACAS code both expect you to support an employee to improve before escalating. So we should be having informal conversations. We should be having these check-ins and one-to-ones before we escalate into performance management. We should document one-to-ones, and we should be making a note of what's said in informal meetings, so that we have got the audit trail of those when we need them. Because invariably, once you get someone into formal performance management, often everyone's got very short memories about all the support and everything that we've done to try and help people. So make sure, even if it's a note in a diary, if you're using a system, so it's something that we've built into the Hero system, so that if you're doing one-to-ones or having discussions, that you can document those nice and easily whilst you're having those meetings. And again, it becomes part of the culture. So people expect that you are going to take notes in meetings. And that doesn't mean that this is super, super formal and, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose my job because someone's taking minutes. It's just the way we do things here, that when we have a discussion, we write it down so people remember what was said. And if we need to check back in, remember who said what or whose job it was to do something or where tasks were allocated, we've got it recorded nice and neatly. So it's good management, good legal practice to make sure we have these informal conversations first. So confidence in these conversations comes from clarity of intent. So know why you are having the discussion and then how you're going to have it. So why we're having it, we've got performance concerns, there are issues, and have a plan for how we're going to help this individual and what they can do to be better. If you go into a meeting and it's, this isn't right, I need you to do better, that one, people are more likely to be defensive, but two, it puts that person under a huge amount of pressure to try and be creative as to what they can do to get better. The assumption is if someone can get better, they would have done it already. So come into that meeting armed with suggestions. This is how I can support you. This is what I think we can do to get better. If it's a problem with quality, here's some examples of the sort of standard that we're expecting. And here are some ideas about what we can do to support you to get to that level. And then also how we're having this meeting. So is it going to be on Teams? Is it going to be in person? I prefer in person. It's easier to read body language. If someone gets upset after a meeting, you're going to notice it and you can have those supportive conversations to check in with someone from a welfare perspective. After a Teams meeting, when someone's shut the laptop, it's very difficult to know how they are emotionally after that meeting, but it is a matter of preference. So prepare before you speak. So 5 minutes of preparation can prevent a defensive conversation. So working through this short checklist that we've put together before you pick up the phone or book a meeting room. So be specific. Number one, concrete examples. Just saying the quality is not where we expect it to be doesn't help anybody. I'm not going to know if somebody said to me that the quality of my work isn't what was expected. Well, is that from a technical perspective? Is that from a time delivery perspective? Is that from the language that I use and people can't understand the advice I'm giving? It could be anything. So concrete examples, dates, tasks, outputs. Vague impressions lead to vague conversations and people leave not knowing what it is that they're expected to do. Now, another tip here, if we have got a list of 56 dates and tasks that have gone wrong, so an enormous long list that stretches back over 18 months, that's not an informal conversation about performance. That's nailing somebody to a wall for something that's gone on for months and months and months, has been left unaddressed, and we've not done anything about it. So 2 or 3 key examples, so that we've got some identified things that we can discuss in detail if we need to, as to this isn't what we're expecting and this is what we need to happen and this is how we can support you to get to that point. If we've got an enormous long list that we go into this meeting with, we're going to feel like we've got lots of evidence that somebody's not doing their job, but someone's also going to get very, very defensive. Do we need that enormous list for an informal conversation? No, we don't, because the purpose of this conversation is we're highlighting the issue. This is what we expect, and this is how we need things to get better. If we have that enormous list, we should have done something before now. That's our lookout, not theirs. Check the context. Is there a workload issue? Is there a training gap? Is there a health issue? Is there something personal going on with this individual? So understand possible causes can help you to respond fairly, to perhaps give somebody a bit more time, give them a bit more latitude, look at how we can add a bit more support or training or perhaps additional resource if needed. Choosing the right moment as well. So private, unrushed, and distraction free. So avoiding Mondays and Fridays. I always think Friday afternoon is a bit of it's time to get fired time. Monday morning as well, people generally are taking a bit of time to settle back in after the weekend. Allow enough time so no one feels pressured or like you've got to wrap up too early. And know your outcome. So know what you want to have agreed by the end of this conversation. So a shared understanding of next steps and a review date. And it's not just next steps of I need this to improve. It's this is where we're trying to get to. Here are some things for you to try. I would like you to try these over the next couple of weeks. If you need to check back in, please come and see me if you have any questions. So we're keeping that door open. We're keeping that relationship nice and warm, but be very, very clear before that meeting what it is that we are expecting as an outcome. So a clear, simple structure, clear, curious, and constructive. You don't need a script necessarily for meetings. You just need structure. So this 3-part framework is something that I do and that can help keep you calm, fair, and on track no matter how the conversation unfolds. So clear, name the specific concern plainly and kindly. We're not sandwiching. We're not saying, here's something good, here's something bad, here's something good, because the bad makes us uncomfortable. So we still want to give people a compliment, or the other way around, where we go bad, good, bad. Doesn't help anyone. Clear, this is what the issue is. No vagueness, the message needs to land. Curious, ask some open questions and genuinely listen. What's going on with you at the moment? Is there anything that you want to talk about? Is there anything I can support you with? You seem to be struggling with this specific task. Have you got any insight that you can share with me that means that I can help you in terms of your improvement, or make some suggestions that might support you? So we're not jumping straight to solutions. The answer is often in the listening. So making sure we are asking questions and we are genuinely listening. And then constructive. So try and co-create practical next steps. Now, I've already said we should have an outcome in mind, and that's absolutely true. But what we need to do is bring this person along the journey with us and get them to co-problem solve together so that we get to that specified outcome. So what is it you think that we can do to improve your performance? How can I assist you with this? So making sure that they feel like they're part of the team, that they've got your sort of emotional investment in this as well, and agree a clear review date as well, so that we're leaving on the same page. And the person should be leaving this meeting in some respects feeling a bit empowered. They've got a goal, they've got an idea about how they're going to achieve it, and they believe that they've got your support to get there as well, rather than leaving feeling deflated and like they're about to get fired. So clear, open well without the mush. So be warm and be direct. So we can be clear, we can be kind, and we can give a direct message without too much foggy language. So avoiding, I just wanted to catch up. Is everything okay? So, right, there's a few things I want to touch on. It's probably nothing, and I'm sure there's a reason for it. No, I wanted to talk through a few things with you because there has been an issue with quality, and I would like us to discuss in this meeting how we're going to resolve it and get back on track. So nice and clear. So the golden rules: name the specific behaviors or outputs, not personality traits. Use examples with clear dates and context where you can. Avoid vague labels like your attitude or your professionalism, which doesn't really tell us things. Tell people what it is that they're doing wrong. Do one concern at a time. Don't pile it on. So if we start with an agenda and say, look, these are the things that I'd like to discuss in the meeting, we're going to go through them one by one. We're not just going to pile it all into one giant muddled discussion. And say it plainly. So this is the issue. This is how we need to improve. This is how I'm going to support you. These are the next steps, so that we're not doing that feedback sandwich of here's a good message, a negative message, and a good message, and then leave and nobody knows exactly what it is that we're supposed to be doing next. So curious, listen for that real cause. This is the most skipped step. So listening, how are you finding things at the moment? Is there anything getting in the way that I might not be aware of? What would make this easier for you to manage, or what's going to make improvement more manageable for you? So you might discover expectations have never been clearly set. They don't actually know what they're supposed to be doing, that there's a training gap. So they might have missed some training. They might have come in at a time when training's already taken place and they haven't had the benefit of it. There's a tool or a resource that's missing. So perhaps the subscription's expired, or somebody else in another department has access to something that they don't, or there's something personal or health related going on. And this matters because listening isn't a weakness. It's often how we can find the real fix. So it helps keep that relationship intact. It shows that you're investing in their future and that you are prepared to support them. And it's likely to bring out issues that you weren't aware of. And if it is something from within the business, it could well be that actually it affects other people as well. So that's why that listening is so important. And then constructive, agreeing that way forward. So the conversation isn't done until you've agreed what happens next. So we want to do this together, and we want to co-create actions that are going to land better and be more likely to stick. So agree 2 or 3 specific achievable actions. So these are concrete and measurable, not try harder, for example, but it's going to be, I need you to submit your reports by Thursday noon for the next 4 weeks. Be clear about the support you'll provide. So don't just be vague, I'm here for you. It could be training. It could be actually check-ins that are in the diary already every week, and stick to them. If you need to move them, make sure you put another one straight in the diary. Don't keep dodging them. If we're going to buddy them up with somebody else, if we're going to give clearer briefings, so we're going to be clearer in the way that we give instructions, and we're going to stick to that structure. So name it specifically so it feels like genuine help and not empty reassurance. And if your business has employee support provisions, so if you're using programs where employees can get counselling or that they can speak to somebody outside the business, make sure that you're flagging those as well. Set a clear review date, so we should know when you're going to reconnect to assess progress, and a date makes that commitment real. And then summarise and follow up in writing. So a brief email or a note to confirm what you've agreed is good practice, and it helps keep you both aligned and quietly protects you if it gives you that audit trail if things do go wrong. So then handling emotion and defensiveness. So even the best prepared conversations can get a bit tense. So humans naturally do get quite emotional. So it's not that we're trying to prevent emotion, it's how we respond and keep a meeting calm. So stay calm, slow down, keep your pace nice and slow, and keep your voice nice and moderated. Tension can be contagious. So if someone raises the temperature of the meeting, it's very, very easy to sort of match that energy. So keep your composure. Pausing, having a think before you speak isn't a weakness. It's a signal that you are in control and you are calm. Acknowledge feelings, so you don't need to agree with a reaction to validate it. So if someone is getting upset or if somebody is getting emotional, don't call them emotional. You can say, look, I can see that this is difficult to hear, but this is a conversation that we do need to have. I am here to support you. And by working on an outcome and a plan together, this is going to be much more manageable, and we're not going to need such difficult meetings in the future. That sort of language doesn't cost anything, can help reduce that defensiveness. And again, it's putting you on their team. Separating the person from the problem. So we're addressing outputs and behaviors. We're not attacking character. So try and keep gently returning to the specifics of the conversation if it drifts into things that are personal, and pause and reconvene if needed. So if someone is getting upset, don't let someone sit on the other side of the table and just weep. Take a break, step out of the meeting yourself. Don't send someone off into a corridor crying with tissues in their hands. Give them some dignity, give them some time to recover themselves. It doesn't necessarily mean you've done anything wrong. Some people can just get very emotional in these sorts of meetings, but making sure that you do give people that space. We don't need to resolve everything in one sitting. These are technically informal conversations. It's not formal performance management. So we can take a break and then come back to something when somebody is feeling a little more calm. When informal isn't enough, so when we're not able to get through to someone on an informal basis and we're not seeing that improvement, genuine support and a fair chance to improve still isn't resulting in that change, then we may need formal capability processes. So an employee, by the time they enter a capability process or formal performance management, should know what is expected of them in their role. They should know what good looks like. And despite that informal coaching and the informal help, they're not reaching it. When we're in that first formal performance management meeting, if we're having to re-explain standards and someone's still not clear on what's expected of them, we probably haven't briefed well enough before the meeting. Formal doesn't mean unsupportive. It's still not disciplinary. So we're still wanting to give real help and realistic timeframes, and we're still documenting. It's just that the likelihood is that we're going to be issuing now formal warnings that if we don't see improvement, despite that support, that it could result in ultimately at the end of an exhausted process, a termination. We have honest and documented reviews, so we're getting regular check-ins. So it's not just a formal performance management meeting every 3 or 4 months. We're still going to be checking in and making sure that we're supporting people and we're not seeing performance peak and drop off then before we get to a meeting. And making sure that for anything where we are issuing any sort of sanction, or a sanction is a potential outcome of the meeting, that we are giving someone the right to be accompanied. So common pitfalls and how to avoid them: waiting too long, as we've already said, leaving something and letting it become toxic, being so soft that the message is missed, that we're fluffing our language and we're not being really clear on what it is that's the problem. We're making it about somebody's personality rather than outputs and behaviors. We're not following up and we're not recording what's happening, and we're treating capability as misconduct. So they're the most common reasons why this can go wrong. So to recap, the 3 things to take away: early and informal beats late, and early and informal beats late and formal. So every time it's easier to be kinder, quicker, and low risk for everybody involved. Don't wait until you've got no choice but to address something. We want to use clear, curious, and constructive approach. So making sure that we are very clear on what's expected, we're asking those questions, and we're coming to constructive outcomes together. Support first. So what is it that we can offer? What can we do to make this situation better? It's kinder and it is safer. So have the conversation whilst it is still small. Further resources and support: so you've got the ACAS Code of Practice, the ACAS Helpline, employment, legal advice, and HR support. So that's us. If you do need assistance with anything around capability and performance management, we can either do performance management for you, we can coach you through it, and we can also coach management teams so that they are better at this. Our HR software has a full suite of performance management in it. We have e-learning courses around all this sort of stuff as well. And now we also wrap everything up with insurance. So if it all goes wrong, then your legal fees and any potential payouts are also covered. So if this is of interest to you, please don't hesitate to book a call with us, and we can take you through how we can help protect you, but also how we can make performance management easy. It doesn't need to be really, really difficult. So we've got a poll down at the bottom of the screen. So after today's session, how confident do you feel starting a capability conversation? Very confident, more confident before. That's what we want to see. Somewhat confident, but I'd like more practice, and I still have questions. If you still have questions, we do have a little bit of time to take them as we get to the end of the session. So your action plan this week: don't let this session be the one thing that you meant to act on. Here's a simple commitment for you to make before the week is finished. Identify any issues. If there's someone that you plan on having an informal conversation with, identify it, prepare for it, and try and get something in the diary and have a go at one of these informal conversations in a low risk environment. You don't need to get it perfect, you just need to get started. And the more you do this kind of stuff, the more confident you are going to get at doing it. So as always, legal disclaimer: anything that involves a formal process, if you do get to that point, carries legal risk, particularly in the modern climate. So if you do need any support, if you are worried, if you've got something where someone either has come back off maternity, if they have a disability, if there's someone who's raising a grievance, you may need to take a slightly more risk-averse approach. It doesn't mean we can't handle the situation, but taking advice and making sure that we deal with those situations sensitively may well be a good idea. So feel free to watch this session back. We are going to do a session on some of those more complex legal scenarios. This is just our intro session into informal capability and how we have those difficult conversations. So thank you so very much. It's lovely to see so many of you coming on these session after session. If there's anything that we can help you with, as always, please don't hesitate to reach out. We do have another session next week. So normally we go every other week, but because I was ill and Michelle was off as well, and we've all sort of had various things going on, we're doing another one next week to catch up, and then they will go back to every other week. So the link is in the chat. The link's also in the chat if you'd like to book a session with us and see how we can help your business. That's no obligation if you do want to have a chat. And also, we would love it if you would leave us a trust pilot for this session as well. And we're really trying to sort of build our presence on there. And also on LinkedIn. So thank you so very much. We do love doing these sessions, and we get such wonderful feedback from you all. And yeah, go and enjoy the sunshine, have an ice cream, and we will see you next week.